something. Okay, any member of the public wishing to be heard shall come forward to the podium at an appropriate time and introduce themselves to the board. Members of the public recognized by the chair will have 3 minutes to speak on a single subject matter or to address the current motion on the floor. The clerk of the trust, Ashley, will function as an official timekeeper. You want to call roll?
Member Andrew. Present. Member Certain. Here. Member Chance. Here. Member Cornell.
Here.
Member Hart. Member Lavarda. Here. Member Peterson.
Here.
Member Twombly.
Here.
Okay, the next item will be because Cheryl has duties that she has to take care of, and she has due to the hurricane. So we have the ability to let her become a working member, a voting member of the board. So
Member Twombly can participate via vote.
second.
Do this thing we-
God, that's so nice. I don't have to read all that crap. So thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is unanimous. Cheryl, welcome as a voting member. And we appreciate Dr. Harper being here as well. Okay, next item of business would be, if there are no changes to the agenda, would be to approve the consent agenda and the regular agenda.
I move approval of the regular agenda and the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a slew of seconds. And is there any questions about the motion? Any questions from the public? There being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is unanimous. Moving right along, the next thing would be executive director, I believe.
Take general comment.
Oh, okay. Yes, general comments.
Did we just keep these on? Don't.
Yes. General comments from anyone from the public. This would be the first of two opportunities to speak about anything that might be on your mind that you would like to address the board. Okay, there's always the second time. So moving along, Marcia. Director Connor.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of things I wanted to cover. First of all, I wanted to bring to your remembrance, now that we're in August, that the trust participated in the WUFT fanfares and fireworks event out at Flavette Field with several of our partners. Where's Kirsten? I can't see her, but I think it was the Lassinger Center, Gainesville Thrives, New Tech Now, and was it Cade Museum? I knew I was going to forget someone. And Florida, for those online, the Florida Museum of Natural History also joined us. And Gainesville Circus, that's right, they were at our table. So a number of our partners. Overall, it was a wet and rainy day, if you all remember. So quite frankly, I specifically, was somewhat disappointed. We didn't get the, 5,000-6,000 people we thought were going to get out there. I got to speak to about 20 people. But the fireworks were nice. At the end of the evening, the rain cleared up and we were able to do that. I'm unsure if we will participate in this event again next year. But I want to thank staff, because staff came out. We had a great PBS Kids Zone. We were there. We gave out, a lot of goodies, and had a gentleman with us who was a balloon artist who was amazing. And our Teens Work young folks, interns, came out and participated. So thank you, everybody, staff specifically for our attempt. And we had some really good commercials on WUFT right before the, what was it? Yeah. So we'll see. I'll let you know my thoughts on it next year. I also want to thank our finance team. We held our first finance town hall. And I mentioned this in one of my weekly reports to you all, but again, just kudos to Scott and is Nicole here and our finance team. We are getting better and better and better. Communicating more with our providers, listening to them, making sure that we are communicating changes to them. Just good stuff. So thank you guys for the work that you did to make that happen. And I believe it's the first of many. And then week before last, we had our after school convening. And you're going to hear a little bit about that from Bonnie here shortly. But again, a wonderful afternoon spent with our providers, talking with them about the information we've been able to collect, allowing them to talk about some best practices and share what's working. And then we talked about we're going to do this more often and bringing them together to really be able to share what they're doing and potentially some of the things that we want to do. So training has really kicked up a notch for those providers in the trust. Good works. Friday, we co-sponsored a violence prevention youth forum with a whole bunch of partners. The Sheriff's Office, the State Attorney's Office, River Phoenix, Alachua County Public Schools, the Florida Department of Corrections, GPD, and I'm sure I've missed somebody. This event was for teens who were justice involved. So they were either already on some form of probation or on the bubble, meaning they've gotten in some trouble and could potentially be headed in that direction if some form of intervention didn't take place. We were approached by Commissioner Book to come in and play a role. So we covered food and we covered some other costs for some takeaways for the young folks who were involved and their families. So I wanted to mention that to you, that we are participating when asked by our community leaders and community partners. So the trust is busy, really busy doing what I think is good outreach, Liz, for all levels of folks in our community.
And just look at all the meetings you'll go to.
There are a lot of meetings.
Good work, Marcia.
Yes, sir.
Gun violence funding.
Our gun violence initiative. So if you will remember, back in May, when you met with the county, you recommended or you asked for a recommendation for $250,000 for gun violence, a gun violence initiative. And the city and county jointly met and they brought forward a proposal that I would like to recommend to the board. For this fiscal year, if you all remember, the initial $250,000 was because we had unallocated funds. And quite frankly, they just, the group just was not able to come up with, I'm going to say recommendations, but with items that they would have time to execute by the end of this fiscal year.
Didn't want to rush.
They didn't want to rush it. And so they would like us to roll that $250,000 into our FY25 budget, where we have already budgeted $250,000 for gun violence initiatives. So that would create a $500,000 pot of money that could be used for these initiatives. They had a proposal. Keep going. They have a proposal for 25, and all of this should be in your packet. There are a couple of things we want to chat with them about because we are currently funding, if you all will remember, the Center for Nonprofit Excellence to help with some of these initiatives. But overall, I am proposing that you all will receive this proposal and grant them the funds to be rolled over into FY '25 and for us to work with the city and the county on their proposed initiatives.
So I see Brittany back here. I know the county is working with the city and the city has really stepped up in the last couple of months. I very much would rather spend the money well than spend the money fast. And so with that, I would move that we roll the fiscal year 2024 funding from of 250 to fiscal year 2025.
Have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second, any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you. Edie Heiner, were you saying, I just heard you say that we were gonna roll it over, but I heard you say an additional 250. So is it 250 or 250s for a
So,
total of 500?
Technically, there would be two. So we would be rolling the 250 from this year into the next year's budget, but we budgeted 250,000 for next year for gun violence initiatives.
Oh,
So we had 250 already budgeted. so-
Correct.
I missed, I didn't recall the 250.
I read through the backup and I would hope that y'all would look very carefully at how the money is gonna be spent, which I already know you do. Because I was wondering how some of it related to, gun violence. So if y'all could be mindful of that as you go through, that would be good. So,
And that will come back to us, right? Once they develop a plan and a budget of how that's going to be used, we'll see that.
Correct.
And so there's like a little rough draft of a 25 budget in here? Yeah, on page 93 of what I have. And I did have some questions about that,
Thank you.
So it looks like they already have some type of plan, or was this kind of initially what?
Oh, so this is what they are proposing for 25, because I told them that we had 250,000 budgeted for 25.
So this is, on what's on page 93, is this the city's undertaking of that, or is this how the city is proposing to spend the 250?
That's how they are proposing to spend the 250,
This year's 250 or next year's?
next year's 250.
So do we know how they're proposing to spend this year's 250?
No,
That's what we'll come back to.
That
That's
needs
what-
to come back. Okay.
correct.
And the focus is still on evidence-based approaches to whatever they do to have programs that are evidence-based.
That will be the discussion.
Because
But yeah.
that's really, I think, really critical. I think there's a lot of,
Yeah, and Christy is saying, and research informed.
yeah, there's a lot of grassroots folks that do that, but we need to be sure that that's what we're,
Yeah, I was wondering I see the grant funded projects, 12 of them at 15,000 each. I was just wondering, and what the strategic consultant is gonna do. I did have questions on that.
but that's their proposal. That's not what they're bringing to us.
Okay.
Yeah, so this will be fleshed out more. What I didn't want to do, you all asked for us to come back with a recommendation for the 250 for this fiscal year within 30 days. Well, we didn't meet until now. So it made more sense for them to give us a proposal to roll the money into the 25 budget. We have time to meet with them to get more information. We can even have Brittany and Brandy, and Tom, if they like, come in and actually do a presentation. But for purposes of today,
Okay.
Okay, so, any further discussion? Any public discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is unanimous. Okay. Fine, please. I can just pick it up and yell down the tune. Not if you heard it. Okay, next item. Oh, does that conclude your report?
yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Go back to the agenda. Sorry, y'all.
Our recommendation for our youth health.
Okay.
RFP.
Okay, and who will be? Is that
Christie.
Christie?
All right, so today we are making the recommendation for the Youth Health RFP. So I have prepared for you the recommendations. I know you guys have had an opportunity to review them, so I will go through them high level, and then, of course, please stop me if you have any specific questions as it relates to the recommendation or any of the information found in the presentation. Just as a quick recap, we released this RFP as an opportunity to expand access to quality healthcare services for children and youth throughout our county. There are 3 areas that we focused on, and that was dental care and education, healthcare services in the rural communities, as well as wellness and healthcare navigators. With all of our RFPs, there is a set of minimum qualifications here. I won't read through those. They're going to be very familiar to you, with the exception of one new one, and that was that we wanted to ensure that those that were applying for this RFP previously or currently had a structure in place for the type of service that we were interested in funding, mainly because this is a healthcare service that we're funding. The allocation for this RFP was $600,000. The term of service, again, our fiscal year, October 1 through September 30, 2025, with the option for renewing 2 additional years. So those that we are recommending for funding would have the opportunity to be funded for a total of 3 years. Again, dental care and education, rural services, healthcare services in the rural community, and then wellness and healthcare navigators. The evaluation criteria specifically for this RFP included evaluating their past experience, project plan, the agency capacity, as well as the budget and what they requested. As a reminder, we included bonus points for those that were applying to offer services in Archer, Hawthorne, and Waldo. They were eligible for 10 bonus points, and then proposals that included collaboration with other organizations could receive 5 bonus points. Those applications, oh, I could hear myself slide back from the mic. Let me come back up. Those applicants that scored at least 70 points or higher were invited for provider presentations where they could be awarded up to 10 points. So as an overview, we received a total of 5 applications for the Youth Health RFP. All 5 were accepted for reviewing and scoring. 3 of those applications were invited for provider presentations, and that was based on their initial score through the review process. After the provider presentations, there are 2 applicants that we are recommending for funding. And as you can see here, they are the Saving Smiles program through the University of Florida, as well as Children's Home Society. And then we had 1 application that was non-responsive, and that was Health Education and Training Center of Gainesville. I have for you in your packet the scores, the preliminary review team scores, and they are preliminary because after provider presentations as well as during deliberations, the review team does have the opportunity to change their score. So these are the preliminary scores and then the final scores that you can see there in your presentation. I also included the requested amount for each applicant on the final review team slide.
Christy,
Yes.
can I ask a question? I'm sorry. Non-responsive meaning they were invited for the presentation and did not come to show for the, you know what I'm trying to say.
I do.
Please.
Non-responsive means after the final or the provider presentation, it was found that they did not meet the intent of the RFP.
Oh,
That is what non-responsive means.
So, Christie, they requested the total of those 2 was 618. How do you propose we break up to 600?
My recommendation was to stick with the $600,000 unless the board would like to give me some wiggle room. We have found that during contract negotiation, normally there are a few cuts and
Just proportionately reduce it if you had to.
yes. And it's easier to see that after we start the budget negotiation with each provider. So I am recommending that we do not increase beyond the 600,000.
I move approval of resolution 2024-08, youth health RFP award recognition not to exceed 600. Authorize staff to negotiate FP contracts with University of 47 Smiles and Children's Home Society Alachua. You were done, right?
I can be done. Thank you.
Motion second. Any questions?
I did have a question. I didn't, the Saving Smiles one, is it like an expansion of the dental services that they're doing?
It is an expansion, yes,
Awesome.
increasing,
Really great.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, it's great. No,
Yeah.
it's really, really great.
It's an expansion.
And Children's Home Society, what do they do?
Children's Home Society has the wellness program. I don't know if you remember.
At the Bishop, I know we were.
Yes,
funding
Howard Bishop. It is also going to include an expansion to a new location. So for both programs, we'll be reaching additional children in the area. So it is connecting families, helping them navigate healthcare services, connecting them to the resources, helping to navigate all of that, making sure they're receiving services from vision to dental to mental health, whether it's immunization. They also are the organization that has the partners with our school district, with University of Florida, the county health department.
So the, what they're proposing is an additional person besides the one that said Howard Bishop at the community school?
Mhm.
One or two? How many additional people?
I believe it's one additional. So each location will have their own wellness navigator who will then focus on specifically on those schools. I believe it's
It's
Rollins.
Rollins.
I was
Rollins.
asking because I didn't think we funded,
And Metcalf,
And
Rollins
Metcalf.
and Metcalf.
oh, okay, two people, I'm sorry. Okay.
So it's
Two additional, so a total of 3.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I had a question. As part of that, are we asking them if they can do it with less money than what was?
It's not giving
If
it-
they can do it
Because if
with,
you're cutting back, kind of, if you were targeting an amount to cut back, I think it's important to say, can you do it for the lesser amount? Or are you gonna have to cut?
it's substantial though.
18,000 between the two.
Only 18.
yeah.
Still, I mean,
Can you do it for 7,000 less, or what would you
yeah,
cut out?
I mean, for 18,000, I'm just not willing to say she can't go over 600,000. I mean, really?
But I think what we're spending now at Bishop is not, what we're funding at Bishop right now is not 1/3 of, or half of that spot. That's why I was.
Like an
Just
overhead
wouldn't wa- I
allocation.
just wouldn't want to get into this place where we're just over, you know,
Well, I think what Christy was saying was let us begin contract negotiation.
right, but his motion cuts it off at 600, and I'm thinking wiggle
We can
can,
come back to you.
Yeah, that was a motion. That was the
yeah,
recommendation.
so
That's a recommendation from staff.
That's the recommendation. I say we go move with staff recommendation.
And then they can come back if
If you
they.
can't make it work, come back to us for.
We can come back in September. We have
Twice.
two board meetings scheduled in September. And so we can come back and speak to you all about needing additional dollars if that is the case. But we'd like to see how we can make it work within the.
That would be perfect because it'll be during the budget discussion.
And I might add that we will be having the enrichment discussion. And enrichment has a lot more applicants, and we only budgeted 250,000 in that particular pot. So I expect that when we come forward with our recommendation, we're going to be asking you for more in that area.
I mean, it's essentially, we're funding 97% of the request. So
Mhm.
hopefully they can figure out how to make that work. If not, come back to us.
Man, it's great to have those phones in there.
Yeah, 600 divided by 618.
Makes him look smart.
So, Chrissy, the one question I had was, darn, I think it just escaped me. You're safe. You can't remember what it was. Oh, I know what it was. When you're having a discussion with them about all the other things as far as health or, you know, would you bring in some safety items as we heard today, you know, which really would be kind of health, you know, about the unintentional falls and those sort of things that, you know, poisonings and, you know, those sort of things. Can that kind of material be available? or be capable of, I mean,
Yes,
we talked about collaboration and
Mhm.
think that this would be an opportunity.
yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any public discussion? If there aren't any, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's unanimous. Next item would be the after-school update. Oh, I'm sorry. Mary. Oh. Okay, Dr. Hart, did you have some you kind of covered up by a note for me? So, did you want to
Yeah,
say something?
can you guys please use your microphones?
Okay, I've got the microphone's actually closer than it was last time, so,
I'm doing better with you, but I can't hear Ken now.
okay.
How about now, Nancy?
Yeah, if you just use the mic, it works great.
Plus, he's just a soft talker, so,
I'll speak louder.
okay, Bonnie.
You gonna tell the big stick too?
That's the first time someone's asked me to speak softer, so
No, she asked you to speak
I'm
loud.
gonna speak louder first time.
Can everybody hear me online?
Cheryl's sitting there looking like she's being interrogated. She is. Like,
Here to give an after-school update,
You need to
so.
put that mic up.
Mike, I mean, yeah, Bonnie, you're gonna have to talk into the mic.
Yep, myself.
You can twist it too.
All right, so out-of-school time programs are a critical component to our system of care that allows youth and families to provide. So I'm here to provide a brief update on our after-school programs. In your packet, you have a very long number of slides that we shared with our after-school providers as part of sharing the data back with them, providing them with updates and trainings, and I'm gonna highlight that a little bit too. But I also wanted to provide a high-level update from the board, and in September, provide a full report and more detailed information. So the Children's Trust has been funding after-school programs since the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Our most recent RFP, 23-01, which we released in May of 2023, we ended up through that RFP partnering with the 7 providers that are shown on the slide. So that's Ages in Motion, Boys and Girls Club, the For Purpose, Kids Count, Girls Place, the Gainesville Circus, and the Willie Mae Stokes Community Center. This slide shows our after-school geographic locations that we've been working with. So for from the beginning, we've worked with the 8 locations and 6 providers, and since the 2021-2022 school year, and then we brought on the Willie Mae Stokes Center through the last RFP, so adding an additional location on our map. So part of our goal was to expand access to after-school programs. We know there's critical for children to have places to go in the after-school hours and for families that might not otherwise be able to afford it. But we want to do more than just provide access to the programming, but ensure that the quality of services are high and that we're making a difference in the lives of youth. So on this slide, we show that we've definitely been able to provide access to youth, 415 in the past fiscal year. And then now, as of today, we're starting the new fiscal year, the new school year. And so we'll be serving children. But I wanted to go into more of the logic model for after-school programs. So the logic model in this, I'm trying to visually depict the alignment between the efforts, the inputs that we are putting in, and the activities and how they're producing our outcomes, both in the short term, intermediate term, and ultimately impacting our goal areas, making the difference in the impacts on children's social emotional development, academic success, so they can learn and be successful. So on this slide, I just wanted to go into our investments, which is our funding, our 7 programs, our 9 locations, our staffing, which is a critical element, our partnerships within the community, and administrative and technical support. So being able to have the data systems, the supports that they need to do the work. What we do, so what the programs do with the youth is provide safe and enriching after-school programs. They have their caring and supportive adults, which is a critical element. Homework help and academic support in the youth development programming. So what happens, these are our measurables, our numbers of youth served, our program days, our daily attendance, our enrichment attendance. And our short-term outcomes, which we've been able to measure right from the start, is knowing whether youth are feeling safe and cared about, that they're satisfied with the quality of program, the homework at help, and the learning experiences offered. The intermediate results is seeing that youth are developing social emotional skills. So they're learning how to develop skills for self-management, self-regulation, understanding their emotions, understanding their social environments, how to manage their relationship skills. These skills are important and have a large impact on their academic and school performance. So they're also very tied and interconnected with academic success. But we also have emphasized that our after-school programs are incorporating homework help and as best possible academic supports through literacy curriculum that's supported through best practice or evidence-based. So what was new this past school year that we really wanted to reflect on and share with the board? So there was a lot of, the first big thing was SAMUS. SAMUS was totally new. Our after-school providers were the first ones in there. We've been, like, they were the first training right off the bat. They got all their kids entered in. They got all their consents in. They got all their attendance in. So this was a very new and very big thing, training all the staffs, making sure all the data was in there. This was also the first year where we asked programs that were implementing academic support curriculums that included an assessment component for them to share those academic gains results with us, because we know that's important to start to explore and understand how we're supporting children in after school with the academic support. Social emotional development, this was also the first year where we wanted to, based on results that we've seen from just satisfaction surveys and knowing the literature out there, is after school programs are very well suited for caring adults to interact one-on-one with kids and build relationships where they can teach and create a good environment for promoting social emotional development, peers, learning how to work with other peers and things like that that support youth development. So we did pre and post tests, and the providers did very well getting the pre and post tests completed for a good percentage of kids that were enrolled for 4 months or longer. So we were able to learn a lot about youth social emotional skills within the after school environment and saw some good data to learn and see how we could do better. For attendance, the attendance has always been different based on whether the age of the youth. So the younger kids always tended to have higher attendance, whereas the high schoolers and the middle schoolers, they had other activities involved. So what we did for attendance is for the K through 5, we looked at daily attendance as a performance measure. For middle school and high school, we looked at participation in specific enrichment content like career readiness, healthy relationships, and whatnot, transition to high school, transition to college. So we track the specific content area versus just daily attendance. We still track daily attendance, but we wanted to see their engagement in specific content areas as well. So for the after-school provider convening, Marcia shared about that earlier. That was
Bonnie,
big.
will you pull the microphone a little bit closer to you?
Sorry.
That's fine.
So for our after-school provider convening, we got our providers together on July 31st, and it was a really great experience. It was an opportunity for us to share the data back with them, which was like just wonderful for me because I see how much work goes into it, and then coming together to talk about what it means, because I see what it is, but I don't always know why. So they were able to share some of what was going on with that data. Each site received their own little individual site profile, so they would not only see the overall results, but they could see how their specific site did, who the children they served were, what their daily attendance were, and performance measures and their assessment results or satisfaction results, so they could look back and before they go into their next school year, reflect and plan on how they want to do better in the year to come. And I was all sites and agencies were represented. We had 11 provider staff that were present, and I think it was a good experience not only to share the data, but to provide the updates, the contract updates, the community engagement updates, and other aspects that would help share resources, learning, training opportunities. One thing that we asked of providers is, hey, how can we do this more often? Is this something you're interested in doing more often? And they were like, yes, we'd like to do this. So we asked them what kind of content areas they would be interested in. And some of the feedback was wanting to hear more about how to support youth academically. Sometimes they'll have even people providing academic support, but it isn't the way that the school district, way of doing it, like the needing to know more of the math, how to do the math, not just 6 + 6 = 12, but how do you do it, the way to get it right on the test, or the homework assignment, wanting to hear more about how to incorporate enrichment services, mental health, local resources, and of course, it's, I think, an ongoing opportunity to be able to reflect on our data, of course. So that is what I have to share for the update today. I'm happy to hear any questions.
Questions? Great. Okay. Well, Bonnie, you'll be happy to know I have questions. First of all, what is WCSD?
Is that the Willie Mae Stokes Community Center?
Okay,
Is that, that might be the name of the assessment.
survey.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just, it was all over the place. I'm saying, what is it? So anyway, as I was reading through this and thinking that perhaps that was for us instead of for the providers, I found it very interesting because some of the information that you provided, with the different breakdown percentages and stuff, actually, those could be performance measures. We have our performance measures, but these are the heart of what, as one board member, I'm after. So if we could, we could incorporate, and I talked to Marcia about this, you'll be happy to know I'm trying to arrange another meeting. And that we have a discussion about performance measures. We've had discussions, but it was essentially, let's, we'll come up with something as performance measures. But this is exactly the type of information that we're looking for. And y'all call it results. That's what we're looking for, is results. And I think it would bode well as we go forward. This is a good baseline, but as we go forward, having this information more than attendance or, was it, did you feel like you got something out of it? This is actually, this is the proof is in the pudding, so I would hope that, we could, and I think that there's, another topic that Marcia wants to bring up as far as for a workshop that we could probably do both. But, this is the kind of information I think is imperative. And what I'm looking for, what the page is 160. 160 in our backup. But that's just a page, but there are more pages that are like that, 158, that have the kind of information yet as far as interaction, the children's interactions, with other children and, were they able to, process a situation, better, those are, and some of it, truthfully, I was concerned that the numbers for, where there was a decline was not as good as what I would like to see. But it's a baseline because we haven't done this and I don't know who came up with this, but, this is exactly what the kind of information I think will be imperative going forward. And, whoever did it, if it was y'all, kudos because, I think this goes further than the performance measures that we've been utilizing. So if we could incorporate information like this into what we consider performance measures, I think as an organization, we'll be better. I think if we can show improvement, then that pretty much, it makes a very good case about, yes, public, you've given us this money, we've made it count. And here's what you can see the difference. You can see that your money's made a positive impact. So, if anybody would,
You can get Nancy, she has her hand up, Dr.
Okay.
Hart.
I could respond real quick.
yes,
That was a baseline and it was intended to, inform an appropriate target based on what we saw, in the previous year. So I didn't want to just throw it in there as a performance measure without
Right.
kind of testing the water. So that was the intention to gather some information to.
I mean,
inform
the
our
stuff is great. I mean, the survey stuff is just, as far as I'm concerned, is perfect. About it tells you, it's got about from, I think, the parents. And it's also got, teamwork, responsibility, problem solving, initiative. That's really good stuff. Dr. Hart?
Hi, thanks, Bonnie. Good job as always. I just wondered, the eternal question is how many days were the kids participating? And I saw these percentages on here, but I didn't know what the goal was. And could you just go over the attendance part of it a little bit?
So for the pre-post assessments, they had to be enrolled for at least 4 months to be included in the analysis. So we wanted to see at least 4 months between pre and post. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I was talking about,
Days.
for a while, we were happy if they came one day a week, and then we weren't so happy with that, and we kept increasing that number, and I wondered what it was and how well people were able to show up.
The kindergarten through 5th grade did very well. Let's pull that up real quick.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
while she is looking that information up, just as a reminder, there is going to be a full report in September of the very information that Dr. Hart and others may be interested in for the after-school RFP. Attendance and all of that information will be a part of it. So I know Bonnie probably has a slide already prepared with that information, but you all will get all of that again in September.
You can see that data as quickly as you're going through the online course.
She knows what
So elementary attendance, so their goal was that 75% of children attended 65% or more program days. They met that target. 88% of children attended at least 65% of the days. So for the middle and high schoolers, their enrichment attendance, again, this was their first year doing this. Some of those very programs, our middle school and high school programs, did experience some turnover in this year. It was a new data system, and it was so there were some targets that they didn't meet with the attendance and enrichment. We're going to be providing professional development and in those provider trainings and convenings to really share enrichment opportunities where they can bring stuff up. We also are going to be funding enrichment providers that we're going to share with them. So that's an area of improvement. But for the younger age group, they're doing quite well. for the middle and high schoolers, getting them the attendance and offering the enrichment content is an area for improvement. And again, like Christy mentioned, we'll share a report and any other information you'd like in more detail.
It looks like attendance is the big gap in middle school and high school.
And if you all remember, we intentionally reduced the requirement for, I don't know if it was middle and high, but definitely high school, I believe, because we know they're participating in all these extracurricular activities. And so keep that in mind as this newer RFP that we released included lower attendance requirements for the older age teenagers. So we were not penalizing them for also participating in extracurricular activities or working an evening job or helping a parent out with babysitting of younger children.
I thought we discussed, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, in some regards, that makes sense to me. The younger the child, the more frequency matters. The older the child, the more whatever they get out of it, the intentionality and the attention. So I think that just actually developmentally makes sense. That we would really focus more on frequency of contact with younger kids than with the older kids.
And I thought that what we had discussed was focusing on the, older children, kind of life development things like,
Yes.
Right, those are the enrichment.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the enrichment.
So they weren't interested in the programs that we were offering. Does that mean that we need to, that'll be a discussion, but that will be a topic. So.
That will be a topic, but we also had a great conversation with the after-school providers at the convening. What did they like? What didn't they like? Or what support do you need from us? Some of them, some of the providers, they just needed to brainstorm. What's everybody else doing? Who are you inviting out? Are you doing it yourself? And so we had a really good conversation at that convening to support them in that area. So we are looking forward to seeing some improvement the next contract year, but we will be able to share more of that with you in September.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion? Any public discussion? There's not really gonna be a motion on this.
Well, we do have. Christy.
Good afternoon.
Hello, happy first day of school.
How are you doing?
I'm Christy Arrington, Executive Director of Girls Place. I definitely wanted to come today for the opportunity to appreciate and support Bonnie. I was out of town for the convening, but my coworker Nevada said, Christy, I listened to you for the first time after 10 years. In that it's been really important for me as an out-of-school provider, the connections with other executive directors is really helpful. It's helpful in learning and growing. It's also helpful during crisis. And so I've been pushing Nevada, connect with other program directors. And so Bonnie, you bringing everyone together allowed that to happen. And immediately she's getting emails and making connections with other program directors about what they're doing and some resources that we have. And so it's wonderful. And so the more that can happen, the better. Because I think it took Nevada seeing it in action to promote her to reach out and to try to connect with them in other ways. The other thing with SAMIS, I know that we all have a whole lot of feelings and thoughts on data in general. I will say that SAMIS is allowing the fiscal process to go a lot faster. And we know where things stand throughout the entire process. So we know whose desk it's sitting on. We know who to talk to if we have concerns. The amount of feedback back and forth with, hey, you're missing this. Hey, we need to look at this again, has been really helpful. So I'm not harassing Nicole with where is it in your pile of 85 providers.
She was shaking her head back there.
Yeah.
when you were saying.
The other thing with social emotional learning in terms of the convening is my hope is that all the providers will be intentional with it. Girl Space has been for a very long time. And so I think what you're seeing initially with the assessment is that some organizations aren't actually teaching social emotional learning. They've just assessed it. And so we are looking at it and seeing and breaking it down even more, like looking at specific age groups and where are they lacking? Where can we support that specific age group? And how do we need to support our teams to support them better? I would, as we look at the next round of funding, like to advocate for expanding the funding to go to direct scholarships. When you talk about summer camp, you're going to get a whole lot of amazing feedback from parents about thank you, thank you, thank you. My child wouldn't have been able to be here without you. It's a harder sell with after school. I am so grateful for the funding. It is really going towards supporting our staff salaries. And so if it hits the pocketbook of a family, it's just so much more meaningful than thanks for this great counselor that you paid to be here. You know, and the parents are going to tell you that. They're going to tell you how amazing our team is. They're going to tell you how grateful they are to be there. It means so much more if they have those great people and they're able to have reduced fees. And so we're one of a few providers that charges weekly fees. And we do offer scholarships, but to have a family know they don't have to pay for after school care for 42 weeks out of the year is just even more impactful. So just opening your minds to that conversation as we look into the next cycle. And thank you all again.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, sure.
My colleagues, like Christy, I thank you for always coming and for advocating for the out-of-school space. And I know I would suggest that to us, that we keep an open mind, especially for the middle school age students, because sometimes parents think those students, because DCF says they can stay home alone, you know, they're a certain age, but I think those are such critical time periods that, and for parents, if money is tight, families may keep them home, but they're just so vulnerable at that age. So I do advocate, I mean, I agree with Christy there that we have an open mind for that. If we have a provider that comes, or we have a provider that says they're offering free after school for that middle and high school age, that we buy into that, because it is critical to keep those kids occupied in a positive way. That's my, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Scott, I think you're up.
Thank you, Chair Pinkeson, and good afternoon to members of the trust and my trust colleagues, the community. First, I will check in and make sure that Member Hart can hear me. We're talking about agenda item number 17, which is a request for some external support for the finance team of the trust. As a little background before I speak specifically to the proposal, you would have seen in the notes to the financial statements for our June report some really good news that I think is worth speaking to, in part to recognize our finance team that has been doing a lot of work digging into specifically the issues that were raised during our fiscal year 23 audit, while at the same time not just keeping pace with the regular activity of the trust, but for 3 weeks in a row, our team has been current on anything in our to-do list in terms of invoices that we received just the prior week. And we continue to make that, maintain that, that forward-looking approach from my perspective. We're current, for the most part, in posting, reconciling our bank statements through June, which is a feat in of itself. If you noticed in the check and expenditures report, you should have seen a lot of reconciled for the May and June report. Some that are still open, and we have a collection of them that through a lot of the journal entries. And I think I am certain actually that there are some other features to optimize in New World that are just not known to us. So in some ways, we don't know what we don't know. Having said all of that, I spoke with ED Kiner on a number of occasions about whether or not we think the team can carry all of it across the finish line. And by that, I mean close all accounts payable for the fiscal year end, reconcile everything back to the beginning of the fiscal year, and ensure all of it is correct and we are prepared for audit for 24 in a timely manner. So we decided to see if there was somebody in the universe that had kind of this very unique expertise that fits for us. In particular, not completely uncommon to find accounting firms that are in our space, governmental nonprofit types of work, and familiar with similar types of entities like ours, and that have expertise in New World in particular, which we think is a unique advantage. So the strategy here is with this proposal, if the board approves, is to combine their effort with what we're already doing so that we can kind of cut the anchor loose is the way I'll say it, because it feels like we drag the history around, and if we can make this pivot to be more forward facing and more prospective with all our providers, it would make a big difference. I'll just speak briefly to the proposal. The primary component is on page 185, which lays out 3 phases in the proposal. Phase 1, which should be only a couple of days, is just a level set with our organization on how our finance infrastructure is established, how New World is set up, and to have some familiarity with our processes and procedures. Part 2 is where the heavier lift is from my perspective. So the proposal here is that BDO is going back all the way to the beginning of the fiscal year, and in essence, in my mind at least, doing a pre-audit before our audit, so that if there are journal entries, ones that we have open, that we have questions about, that we need to make, we know how to process those correctly, have some sense of how New World is used today and how it can be augmented to help support our finance team and our providers, and to work through that process directly with our team. So there will be a learning, I think, at the same time with our team. That's a 4 to 8 week process, not full-time every week. And then the third phase, which will come towards the beginning, first quarter or so of fiscal year 25, is really a roadmap, a set of policies and procedures based on their experience with us that really allow us to kind of not just be on our feet, but to be sprinting along with the trust to get business done the way we all expect. If you look at the pricing for the full proposal, meaning phase 1, phase 2, all 8 weeks, and the final phase 3 at the highest end, it's around $100,000, which is the request that was presented to the Finance Committee. I think it's more like 4 weeks is where we'll land on phase 2, and probably be somewhere around 60,000. But in the discussion with the Finance Committee, their vote was to recommend to the board approval of this proposal.
Questions? Motion?
I have a question
Okay, all right.
before we make a motion.
Sure.
So I tell me your name again, please.
Scott.
I didn't want to call you Scott. I was trying to think of your last name. So Scott, I guess I'm trying to figure out, like, we're having an audit before an audit, or some additional support, external finance support outside of this. I'm trying to figure out, like, when you came in, like, you didn't get any type of infrastructure. I know we did a software conversion, but there was like these policies and procedures and things, we didn't have like a set of those when you came in.
We do. I don't, in my assessment, well, one, I'll say just as a brief aside, I had 4 days of training with my predecessor, and it has been a little trial by fire to get up to speed quickly working with the finance team. And I don't mean any of that in a pejorative way. We do have some policies and procedures. They are not robust enough, I think, for the scale of the trust today. So they're a little outdated in that context. And you couple that with, I would say we probably didn't know what we needed to know when the trust first stood up and implemented New World, working with the county. and it's hard to get direct, the type of support we need in New World from the county because they've got a big operation to run today. They certainly help troubleshoot smaller things that we deal with. So it's really kind of putting both of those things together to support our regular operation, so we can do our regular operations, right? And to get a once look at, here's what we've done in reconciling back to the beginning of the fiscal year, right? And to just kind of vet our work there and make sure where we have questions, we're going to ask them what the questions are, but there isn't something that we have missed that would otherwise show up in an audit and extend the time from the audit, which was the experience last year.
And so we're thinking this is this bridge here, and once BDO comes, we won't have to have this. We've had a lot of outside finance help. So we're thinking this bridge we're building here, they'll build a bridge and give us the blueprint, so to speak.
Yeah, I like the bridge concept. I think that fits. And this is a one-time approach, and I think we have determined what the right set of solutions need to look like that get us across the finish line. And I guess I would just say candidly, at the end of this, if we approve it right, then it's on me and the finance team to carry the ball, which I think we are well positioned to do. Given the complement of staff that we have, and some of the things that we've already improved, that in our relationship working with the providers, a new set of guidelines for the providers that helps them, help us, help them. We'll really kind of get all of that across the finish line. And all of us have confidence in monthly reporting that comes to this board, our regular finance operations.
You good?
I'll make a comment too. I mean, I think it's always hard for a board to hear hour and a half of what was discussed at the finance committee in 9 minutes. Tina, so I know exactly where you're coming from. What I would say is that having a reliance on the data and having the providers now caught up to where things are systemized and institutionalized, this is the perfect investment to get us to now go to that next level. So we had a lot of questions during the finance committee meeting, all the way back to where are we on bank recs? Where are we on reconciling actually provider contracts back to the financials? And so I'm very much in favor of this proposal. I'm really glad. I actually thought Scott was going to bring this to us like in a year, but he's been sucking from that fire hose and said, thinking institutionally, when's the right time? And I think now is absolutely the right time. So with that, I would move staff's recommendation.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second, any discussion?
Yeah, just to piggyback a little on, I did not make the finance committee, but Scott called me, we had an earlier call to walk me through it. And I think, we could spend a lot of time. I'd rather have Scott and the team now spending time on building our provider relations, making sure that the current piece is going really well, than on cleanup. And I think that also looking at having a set of policies and a roadmap to make sure that we are always going to meet the audit requirements, et cetera. I think it's worth the investment. And I think it's money that we have. And I strongly am in favor of moving forward with this, because I think it would just position us really well going forward.
It benefit the cleanup, right? Because
Right.
you understand what has been presented and what was done and the limitations that we had.
Yeah.
With debits and credits and stuff like that. But yeah, this is good.
Okay, any public discussion?
He had his hand up.
Thank you.
I'm back to the bridge metaphor because I like it a lot all of a sudden. I just want to say that to me, this is a pivot. And there are other conversations that are already in motion. I'm going to look at Demetrica because there are some dashboarding opportunities out of SAMUS that we're very interested in. There's an integration point between SAMUS and New World that we are very interested in that will automate a new set of reporting and a higher level of reporting. And doing this in part gives our team time to be more forward focused instead of kind of chasing the past.
So I have another question. So will this, are we getting support to integrate SAMUS and New World from New World or from Samus or from someone out, or is BDO doing this? I mean,
No, that's
how is that
not-
happening? Because I know
Yeah, no,
we've
that's
got
not
this.
part of the BDO proposal, and I don't, I'm fairly clear early on, right, that the first phase is some dashboarding out of Samus that I'm looking at Dimitri, I'm pretty sure already exists. We just need to go after it and figure out how to deploy it in our organization. I already know that there's a data analytics component that exists today that sits on top of New World that
Okay.
will facilitate reporting and have a gateway that would link Samus and New World together. That one's a little more opaque, I will say, but it's another one that we're after just in terms of, kind of getting us to a new generation of reporting and sophistication and optimization of technology.
Any other questions? So that interim title is good for what, 5, 10 years?
Actually, he's interim, but by the November, what's next month? September meeting, there should be some changes, some movement.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's unanimous. Okay, second opportunity for the public. If y'all would like to come forward and address the board about what you've heard today, what you'd like us to hear just rolling around your head, come on up and. And if not, we'll just move along to the board. Shane?
No, I just want to echo, I saw a lot of the work done with the girls club this summer, first answers and children. Just compliment your staff and the work they've done. And then to reiterate that I think what I heard you say was the consideration of funding to help support the after-school programs as well, kind of similar to what you all do in the summer. And I do know that goes a long way for our families as to what to do with, let's say, the elementary school kids after 1:52 or whatever time they get out, right? Depending on the day and the week. And so, and then I see Executive Director Martin here and just, like to thank them for their continued partnership with the trust and with our community. They're leaning in, helping us out in our partnership schools and looking to expand that. As was mentioned earlier, with the trust's help at not only Bishop, but reaching back into Metcalf and then down the road to Raleigh's. And so I just wanted to say thank you all for your support.
Member Chance? Anything? You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Okay.
No, just happy to be here.
Okay. Tina?
I did have one question for Marcia. The independent taxing districts, I got an email about the ethics training. I don't think I need to take it, but
Because you are an elected official.
yeah, I
The school board folks should be talking to you about doing.
no, that's what I'm saying. I've already done an ethics
Not
training
to
for
take
that.
it.
So okay. So that's why that was my question. I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
Anyone that's not taking it as another elected official needs to take it.
I'm good.
Okay. I ask questions on-
You said it, I didn't.
Okay, I just have 3 quick questions, Marcia, on the 4-year information. So the update on the Anita Zuckerberg Center, meet with Dr. Knopf and Dr. Schneider. Staff plans for implementation and rollout. What's the time frame for when that's going to come back to us? I'm sorry, page 192. This is in the informational items, the August update. Yeah. Yeah.
We had a meeting with them, what we're working on now, we came up with some topics on what. Excuse me. We had a meeting. And what we talked about were different topics or categories that should fall within the MOU. Ways that they can support what we're doing when we come back to you with our childcare tuition assistance update, how they can support what we're doing with the Gold Seal and the early learning centers. And so we're working on it in addition to the RFPs and what we're doing right now with maternal child health.
November, October.
So October, maybe November.
Okay.
Okay.
Second one on the next page, research, this is on the peak literacy.
Mhm.
Research staff are awaiting program results to determine pilot impact. When will we put that?
So we have an internal meeting, I believe, next week with Peak. And so we will be able to take a look at the results of that, make an internal decision about where we think that pilot should go, if we should move it forward to the next summer, expand it for the entire third grade, or not at all. And so I'm thinking by, again, October, November, we'll be able to come back to the board with some recommendations about how we should continue on with Peak.
So I would just say when we get to that point, if we can tell the county that's been one of their literacy
Okay.
thing, yeah. Put that on the
Okay.
radar. And then lastly, on the last page, 196, the mentoring program, the mini grants.
Yes.
When do we expect to have those kind of completed and in
Mm.
process?
The mini grants.
Mhm.
So we right this moment are finalizing data from all of our contracts. And so that's a part of our CQI process. And so closer to the beginning of our new fiscal year is when we can come back with all of our presentations. We just recently put together a timeline for presentations for initiatives. Maybe that's something that would be helpful to go in the board. So, okay, board packet. And so again, all of those things are closer to our new fiscal year because they are now just submitting their year-end reports. So that CQI process, the data, analyzing the information will start coming in closer to our new fiscal year, October, November.
Thank you. All I would say then, Lee, is there's a lot of info in this backup and a lot of work has been done. We have been out and just a lot of gratitude to staff. Thank you.
Perfect. You had something that you wanted to bring up, didn't you?
Well, that leads right into
Yes.
the discussion. So Lee and I had a discussion earlier today about our strategic plan, and the purpose of us putting all of this in the packet was to provide you with an update. We are now a year into our 3-year strategic plan. And so our question internally turned to putting it back to you. Do we need a workshop to cover where we are? Are you all understanding where we are with everything? We agreed that we needed to provide you with these kinds of updates more often, just to keep you all, so that you see that what we're doing is in line with what we said we were going to do.
I'm good with that update, and I think of strategic plans every 3 or 4 years, we circle back. As long as we're getting an update and we can ask questions like we just did. I don't think we need another workshop, if the board agrees.
And I don't need a workshop, but I was gonna suggest, I like the funding. There's a page in here, which I just tried to find it, that had like the funding by goals and things I think that's good. I think if we start to correlate the things that we do with the priorities that we have in our strategic plan, that will help us as board members to follow along with our progress and track it as well. I think that would be the.
And I think as we start to get the CQI data and we start, I mean, I think the strategic plan is one thing, and then the contracting piece of it,
Mhm.
how much money, we had targets set up, how close are we to getting the funding aligned to those targeted areas? And then do we have the right providers on board to get us to the end goal in each of those areas? And I think a lot of the data we saw today is
move us
aimed
in that
directly
direction.
at that. So I think as long as we're getting the updates on the plan like we're handed out and this kind of backup data, then I think we know where we are. And you know, if something goes astray, there's nothing that says then we can't say, oops, we need to tweak a few of these goals or whatever. But right now, I'm not seeing anything that would make me want to
Right.
go, oh, we need to revisit.
Did you have anything else?
No, those are very.
I would say, when we were talking about financial dashboards, just a programmatic dashboard of where we are in each area, what was awarded, what's been actually invoiced and funded. That's helpful for me, just an
Yeah, the
overall.
invoiced and funded piece is something.
Yeah.
Scott doesn't even want to, because it's one of my, you know, just trying to be able to figure out where should this particular provider be? Because some have a contract that's really only in, you know, a summer thing, and some are all year, and where should they be? Where are they? But until we were caught up with processing the invoices. So,
Cheryl?
I was just gonna say, because this is a 3-year strategic plan, we probably would want to revisit it like the last 6 months of that 3-year cycle, just to make sure. I mean, it may be that we say this is the path we want to continue and it's the route we're going to continue another 3 years, but a 3-year plan is a 3-year plan. So if we want it to be a 6-year plan, I think we would have to revisit it at that point.
I would think, Cheryl, I think maybe, closer, 6 months is a little bit too close because we really would, I think, like kind of monitor like where we are and moving, because we may need to do some adjustments. We may see that we may need to do some adjustments before we've been in this thing 30 months, we don't want to keep.
Middle of next year.
Yeah, so I was thinking like 18
Not a
months is what
bad-
I was thinking, maybe we look at
That
that
works
and see, 18.
Okay,
Mhm.
yes.
And if I think having the, the exact spending, how they've done the funding, I wish I could find that sheet just now, but
Yeah, I know exactly which one you
It's
mean.
in-
I
you
looked
know,
at it too.
it's in there. I think that is helpful. And I know, Scott mentioned that there were some invoices, I think, and I recall from previous summers, like once school ended and we entered in the summer, providers can't submit invoices that related to the previous school year, and they may not have gotten those done, right? So they had to wait to do the June through July, August, and then they can go back and look back to getting their billing or whatever done for, the school year programming, but I think we have a few things in there that we can look, and then from the after school, probably the convenings that you're having with providers. I know you referenced the after school one. I don't know if there's an enrichment one you're planning to have. That I think that will be valuable information. The health RFP is new, so we won't have any info from that, but we do have, I saw some info from the Smiles, Saving Smiles, from what they've been doing. I think that's good, but in the right direction. Plan is a plan. If you monitor what we're doing, then we adjust.
Dr. Hart, do you have anything? Couple things. I forgot to ask, the Saving Smiles, is it going out in the rural areas?
Yes.
Okay, and the other one, and the other,
The other one is local to their location. It's
Okay.
going to be on site. That one was required
Howard
to,
Bishop. Yeah.
it was,
Okay.
yeah, Howard
Thank you.
Bishop, Metcalf, Rollins. They're
Okay.
required to be on site where that location was at.
Okay, and when we get the summer program, and whenever it's coming back, then I'll bring up the thing about the performance measures.
Okay.
Okay, all right. And I believe that's it. So thank y'all very much, and I look forward to seeing y'all next month. And, oh, actually, the next meeting is at the county in the main meeting room, Jack Durrance.
Oh, the chamber.
Yeah,
Correct.
Is that for the first?
at 4 o'clock, and then we have the trim meeting. I believe it's probably scheduled at 5:01. So we'll get all that done.
So September, we're still gonna we're gonna move around a bit. The 9th will be at the County Administration Building, but the 23rd, our second meeting in September, will be back here. So we will make sure that we do a really good job of telling you where to go. And I'm hoping
Hey.
by November, we'll be in our building.
Other people tell me where to go.
Yeah.
We'll tell you where to go.
I'm sure she's tempted at least once a day.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
So I got some time now.
Well done, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Please.
I wanted to tell you, the newborn data, the intake numbers, we didn't include all of them because they didn't give us their county or their race on the intake. We couldn't include it in there. That's why the number is so different and so low.
For the people at the hospital, after giving their birth, they wouldn't tell you where they were from.
They won't give us, if they're not interested, they don't give us their zip code or their race. Choose not to, but I'm just gonna provide that information.